The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
This is News Talk.
Yeah, you're welcome along. So on the show this evening, we'll talk to Billy Walsh as part of our Future of Sports series. We have Ronan O'Gara on Wednesday Night Rugby as the Six Nations looms large. The launch day was today. Johnny Sexton reckons he'll be just fine for the opening weekend, which is good news. Miguel Delaney is on the football show, currently covering the Chelsea game against Wolves, 0-0 at half-time. And Tim Vickery, always a welcome guest on the football show as well, after 9 o'clock. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball. Richie McCormack, evening to you.
How are you, Joe? You well?
Very good. Nice playlist last night, by the way. Very nice.
Thank you very much. Very kind.
Yeah, very good. Filling in for Tom Dunn. He tweeted his playlist, and I, on my walk this morning, took a route through it. Richie, very, very nice stuff. Nathan Murphy, hello.
Very good.
How's it going?
What's going on? Have you been watching any of this Chelsea match? No penetration was the Rio Ferdinand verdict. Lots of pretty passes, lots of, faffing around in there, but ultimately no joy.
Hold on. Are you saying a bunch of Frank Lampard's ex-colleagues are saying that the new manager he's replaced, that's replaced him, are saying it's no good?
I have been flicking between the two matches, and currently I have the Aston Villa game on, who again are just an absolute revelation over the last few weeks and are beating Burnley by a goal to nil. I saw bits and pieces of Chelsea. It's the first match. He's barely had a training session. This feels to have become some sort of battle once again that we see every few months and years for the heart and soul of what English football should be about. And Mason Mount has been dropped, the golden boy of the Frank Lampard era, the golden boy of English football. And what does this say? Is Thomas Tuchel laying down a marker, left out Tammy Abraham? All the progressive work that Frank Lampard did over his 15, 16 months in charge and bringing through these young players, is Tuchel now just going to throw it to one side and ignore them? Of course he's not. But Frank Lampard's been sacked by a reason, so it's totally understandable if he's going to change the team. And we have no idea right now how he chose that team, whether there were people behind the scenes who've been watching the players in training, whether he was talking to the medics and the strength and conditioning coaches as to who's in peak condition to go out and play. But it's been used already as a stick to beat him with. And his job is not to help continue to develop Reece James and Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham and Billy Gilmore, who looks like he's going to go out on loan. His job is to win things. And that was Frank Lampard's job as well. And that's why Frank Lampard isn't the manager anymore.
Well, since Abramovich came on board, name the manager aside from Jose Mourinho who's been in the job for more than 2 years. And there have been a lot of managers.
For more than 2 years?
Yeah.
Antonio Conte didn't get the full 2 years, did he?
No.
For two full seasons or 2 full years?
Years.
Yeah.
Ranieri?
Before Abramovich took over. I guess he took over during the Ranieri regime, but he did get more than 2.
Avram Grant?
It's a trick question, gents. Nobody.
Nobody.
Of course,
okay.
Nobody. And so if you're Thomas Tuchel, you ain't got no time to develop anybody. You need to just win right now.
Yeah, he needs to be contending for the title at the very least next season. And if he doesn't win the title next season, he'll be under massive pressure right from the start of the following season that if he's not in contention, if he drops out of the top 4, he's probably going to get himself sacked. But he is a modern coach who I suspect fully knows what he's letting himself in for. Firstly, because the way the Chelsea job rolls, if it doesn't go particularly well, his reputation won't be massively damaged. But also, it's worked. Everything Roman Abramovich has done has worked. They've won more trophies than any other club since he came in. So there isn't really an opportunity at Chelsea to have the Jurgen Klopp type impact where they may build a statue outside the stadium of you in 10 years' time. But there is an opportunity to go and win a Champions League, potentially even this season, at a time when a lot of the bigger clubs, a lot of the favourites for the Champions League maybe aren't at their very, very best. So there's a chance to go and do that straight away. There's a chance next season to reinvest again. And they've spent a lot of money. There's a lot of talented players at that club. So I think Tuchel will understand completely that this time next year, he will have to be in contention for the title or he'll be out of a job.
Yeah, oh, for sure. We'll check in with Miguel Delaney later on. He's obviously watching the game as we speak. It's just kicked off. Obviously not the only game on this evening. Manchester United against Sheffield United catches the eye. Everton against Leicester City. We'll kick off the news round. It is, as ever, with thanks to our friends at Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. Richie, where do you want to start?
We'll start with tonight's games. Thomas Tuchel, in his first game in charge of Chelsea, dropping both Timo Werner and Christian Pulisic to the bench tonight. Still Chelsea 0, Wolves 0 at Stamford Bridge. While at Turf Moor, it's Burnley 0, Aston Villa 1. Ollie Watkins giving Villa the lead after 14 minutes there. There's a 7:30 start at the Amex where Brighton take on Fulham tonight, while at 8:15, as you mentioned, Manchester United can go top of the Premier League table with a win at home to the bottom side Sheffield United. At the same time, Everton welcome third place Leicester to Goodison Park. A win for Carlo Ancelotti's side would see them go fourth in the table.
They were looking very good last night, Manchester City. Cancelo was playing as like an all-round midfielder, box to box. It was quite incredible. They were in cruise control. No De Bruyne either, Nathan.
It was effortless. It was Manchester City of a couple of years ago. And just slowing it down, and even watching the post-match analysis where they're showing the positions the players are picking up. Vinny Perth sent me on a video a couple of weeks ago of something presumably that was doing the rounds among coaches of Cancelo and his positioning and how he helps Manchester City exploit so much space, and also how the centre backs help him exploit space and him stepping into midfield and dragging players with him, and somebody else will take advantage out in the right wing, or Stones will go into the left back position, which will suddenly open up space for Cancelo when he steps into midfield. It's just so intricate, so well worked that when it comes off, it just looks unstoppable. And last night they did look. It was Manchester City of 2 years ago. And again, it's when they're playing like that, it's easy to see the difference between them and Liverpool, because they were last season where Liverpool are now, where it was that bit slower, that bit more predictable, not quite the same level of movement. And then it's all a bit dull. Whereas when it's working and when players are on top form, it's just a real joy to watch. They're probably
last night as well, though, about West Brom and about Sam Allardyce teams, and considering the position they're in. Allardyce, with his previous teams as well, has viewed those games as a shot to nothing. That essentially, if they don't get anything out of it, then what's the harm? They're always going to lose it anyway. So that the City performance has to be tempered with that. That said, I do think City are going to go on and probably win the Premier League by my mild estimation of about 1 million points at this stage, because they do look like very much the team in form and the team that will still improve from the point that they're at now.
I think Liverpool City on Sunday week is huge. If Liverpool could somehow beat Manchester City and end this run for City and get themselves back, then we might have a title race. But again, almost the flip of last season, if City can go to Anfield and beat Liverpool, it's hard to see anybody keeping pace with them. They have been fortunate. We're looking at 2 games in the last week where major decisions have gone in their favour. Last night, the scenario where the assistant referee, Sian Massey, puts her flag up, the West Brom player stopping Cancelo smacks it in top corner. It was a little bit ludicrous. We had the same scenario against Aston Villa with the offside, where it turns out they've changed the rules. So they are having a bit of luck, but when they're getting it, they're taking full advantage. Yeah,
it was a strange decision to put up the flag, given that 2 weeks prior at Anfield, even when Marcus Rashford was 20 yards offside, the policy was clearly to keep the flag down until we have absolute confirmation. This was a really tight offside call, and her flag went up straight away. And as you said, a lot of the West Brom players, for people who didn't see the game, just stopped playing effectively. I mean, not totally, I don't want to over-egg it, but certainly didn't put as much pressure on the ball as they might have otherwise. So it was a mad move. I'd say we won't be seeing that again anytime soon when you have VAR there. I guess everybody concerned is just lucky that it was so obvious Man City were going to win regardless. But could you imagine that moment had happened between United and Liverpool 2 weeks previously? The war on Twitter would only be just cooling down right now. There's a text in saying, "Come on, Murphy, I want the goods. How many push-ups?" ? Says Tom. Now we're talking.
Joe, I was out trying to do my 12 and a half minutes, making sure doing my, was it 2.35k, and seeing how long it would take me.
12 minutes, yeah.
I hurt my back. I've been in agony for the last 24 hours, so I'm not sure what I did. Did something with my calves, I think, that's affecting my lower back. But I was watching Operation Transformation last Wednesday night, and like a lot of the country who were watching it, straight away we're thinking, ooh, this is quite interesting. I've never thought of it like this, having a base level of fitness that you should either be at or you can aspire to. This has turned into the old 5K of the first lockdown, though, hasn't it?
Yeah. Where people
were suddenly running 14-minute 5Ks. Where, yes, some of the numbers that were coming through for the amount of press-ups, my view on a press-up is that it's quite difficult, and you're going right down. The full body is going down together. The hips are down. The head is down. Up and down, that the arms are going. Whereas I think if I'm doing that, I'm not getting the 32 or 33 that a lot of people seem to be coming up with.
No. you got to bend those elbows and then lock them back out straight again and go again. I send a few videos of people just frankly keeping their arms straight and just thrusting the ground. And it's not a pretty sight.
Which is it's giving you an insight that you don't really want.
Yeah. It's not technique I need to see or want to see.
When you went home either last night or this morning, you thought, I'm going to give this a go.
Yeah, I gave it a go this morning, I have to be honest. Yeah. I didn't do the 12 minutes. I managed 40 push-ups.
Wow.
But I mean, I collapsed and I'm in pain now. Colin has texted in saying that his moobs, thanks again, Colin, for the image, are sore from pumping out the press-ups all day. I can do 15 in a row. Will I live to see the end of the week? Says Colin. I think really what the last 24 hours have been for anybody who listened to Niall Moyna, in general, just a massive, massive wake-up call. Nobody needed that information. Nobody needed to know just how far behind those basic averages we all were.
Well, I don't think we even knew about the basic averages before this.
Yeah.
And I think that is why it was so interesting that unless you're working towards an end goal of running a 5K or a 10K or doing a marathon or triathlon or just staying fit for a football team or a sport, that quite often, if you're just doing that leisurely run, you're not quite sure what you should be aiming for. And I would have found that, say, when we were running 5Ks during the summer of, well, what's good and what's not. If I'm doing 27 minutes, I feel fine doing that. Is that good? Or should I actually be pushing myself to a standard for my age that I should be meeting? Whereas when you look at that, actually, yeah, that is something that if I push myself, I should be able to get to. But right now, it's probably a bit of a struggle.
Yeah. Last one, Marcus says, lads, I have a body shape, which means that when I do a press up, I drop about an inch before my belly rests on the floor. Do they count? Yes, they do, Marcus. Yeah, that's you done. So Richie, launch day at the Six Nations, not as we know it. Everybody wasn't exactly in London smiling for photos.
No, not exactly. Before we get to that, actually, we have had a goal at Turf Moor. Burnley are taking on Aston Villa this evening. Let's hear about it from Peter Smith.
Burnley 1, Aston Villa 1. Burnley's leveller coming from a set play, a left wing corner from Ashley Westwood into a crowded 6-yard box on the right, where Ben Mee scored with a towering header. Burnley 1, Aston Villa 1.
Yeah, Jonathan Sexton, meanwhile, optimistic about being fit for the start of the Six Nations campaign. The Ireland captain sustained a minor hamstring injury in Leinster's win at Munster last weekend. And speaking at today's launch event, Sexton said he should be fine.
Yeah, it's like I said already, it's a minor hamstring issue, but I'd hope to be back, by the weekend. Lucky that we've got a little bit of a longer prep with Wales being Sunday week. So whenever it's right, really. Like I said, it's nothing major. It's just frustrating timing. But it is what it is. Just got to look after it and make sure come back and ready to go.
Meanwhile, head coach Andy Farrell says Paul O'Connell's addition to the coaching staff will lift the entire group. The former international lock was named forwards coach earlier this month with special emphasis on the line-out, but Farrell says O'Connell brings much more to the table.
Well, you're always looking to expand for the better. If that's the case, then you explore the avenues to be able to do that. Obviously, Paul, everyone would label Paul as being a specialist within the line-out area, but his remit and the reason for him to be added to the group is to make us better as a group, as a whole group, as a management group and a playing squad, and at the same time, 100% he's going to strengthen us as a coaching group together. So we want Paul to just be himself, and that'll be enough for us because he'll be infectious and be the winner that he is.
Now then, a lot of athletes looking at every dispatch, I suspect, from the IOC and Thomas Bach and various reporters around the world with bated breath at all times. So Thomas Bach has been trying to reassure everyone today, I think, Rich?
Yeah, this is going to be the first of a series, I think, of briefings from the International Olympic Committee president. And to that point, I think they totted up there's around about 26% of athletes that have yet to qualify for Tokyo 2020. And the IOC president says they're not thinking about whether the Olympics will go ahead, but how they will go ahead. He told a press conference that they remain fully committed to starting the Games on July 23rd. However, he couldn't guarantee whether or not fans will be present. Earlier in the week, four-time Olympic gold medalist Mo Farah claimed athletes would all be vaccinated before heading into Japan, but Bach insists no one is skipping ahead of the vulnerable.
We always have made it clear that we are not in favor of athletes jumping the queue. This we said already in November last year. That in the first lines must be the high-risk group the health care workers, and the people who keep our society alive. That is the first priority. And this is a principle we have established.
That's a good principle, I have to say. It's just a logistical nightmare. So we're talking, Nathan, I think 7.5 million tickets on sale for all the events. Right away, you can't imagine fans right now jetting in from all over the world. So you suspect that will have a line drawn through it within the next month or two, which is when they decide on fans. But then ultimately with the athletes, and they're saying there about vaccinations and not happening in the way others have been talking about. So non-vaccinated athletes, 10 to 15,000 athletes across Olympics and Paralympics, and probably the guts of another 5,000-10,000 officials to ensure the smooth running of everything. I mean, from this vantage point, it's really hard to see.
Yeah, I think the loss, if it doesn't go ahead, is somewhere in the region of at least 10 billion, where if it goes ahead, even without fans, that is massively, massively reduced.
Right.
And right now, there's absolutely no chance that supporters from around the world are going to be attending, never mind supporters from within Japan. They still have plenty of time logistically to get organised. The vaccine conversation may well have changed within 3 or 4 months. Can you get all the athletes from the various competing countries into Japan a month in advance, and they all have to self-isolate in various hotels? I know they're talking already about bringing athletes in at different times, perhaps. So you would come in exactly 2 weeks maybe before your first event. How does that work when you look at what's happening in Australia in terms of staying fit and being at peak physical condition if you have to quarantine for 2 weeks before you actually start your event? So there are probably little ways around it, but none of them are ideal. And what it may do is, again, show the world the disparity that's there in terms of the vaccine, where pressure, I'm sure, will come from the first world countries, from America, from countries like Ireland, to go and have these Olympic Games be held, where there may be an opportunity for the athletes to get vaccines. But is that going to be the case for every country? And again, it is the Olympic Games. It's meant to be for every country. So therefore, if 10 or 20 or 30 countries...
I was listening to Bach's press conference today. He was saying that they are in regular contact with the smaller national organising committees. So they are trying to help out the Eritreas, the Vanuatus, the, whatever other country you want to pick out of this world, to try and make sure that they're all able to take some part in this. They've kind of, I hate saying it, he managed to cover so many bases today that he tried to, put across that this is, and they are planning for all eventualities, and this will go ahead no matter what, and that everybody who has qualified and is eligible to compete will be there. It's the mechanics of that is going to be another story entirely, but they do seem confident that they're in touch with all of the national Olympic committees. They're in touch with the Olympic committees with a view to them speaking to their own governments. So BAC and the IOC have the kind of heft behind them to ensure that the athletes are going to be there. I just think, like you say, it's the fans coming in from all around the world. It's just not going to happen. To have a smattering of Japanese fans at certain events, I think, is probably going to be their goal from here on in.
The Olympics?
Are they important?
Listen, we were there in London, and you'll never forget the atmosphere of the Saturday night or the Sunday when the English athletes are dominating. Usain Bolt is winning gold. But if you're an athlete from one of the countries that wouldn't have a huge support base traveling, so for middle distance runners from Kenya, is it going to make a huge difference to them if there are no supporters there? So that's something we look at, the magic of the Olympics, the magic of the moment of winning gold. Will it be tarnished by doing it in front of an empty stadium?
Yeah, I don't think it'll have an effect on the athletes, but God, now that you mention it, the thought of these echoey indoor arenas when something absolutely spectacular happens and there's just no reaction by the echo, that's pretty grim.
The gymnastics and the basketball taking place in empty arenas is kind of a really, it's a grim thing to kind of countenance, because they're so ingrained with the applause of the crowd and the participation of the crowd. In Rio 4 years ago, weirdly enough, at the athletics, it was so badly sold in terms of the tickets, and was in too big a stadium, in the Botafogo football stadium, that the place was, Jesus, 3/4 empty anyway most of the time. So as regards operating in an empty stadium, they've kind of gotten used to that. They got used to it to a degree, the athletes as well. Was it Dubai at the World Championships a couple of years ago too, and that thing was completely badly sold by the IAAF. So as regards empty stadiums for athletics, they're almost used to it. for the other sports, it's going to be like a massive come down from what they've had in the past couple of Olympiads to go to this one where there'll be not a sinner knocking around the indoor arenas. Yeah, well, look, all problems are relative. They'll pipe in some crowd music and away we go. Euro 2020, I really don't know about calling it Euro 2020, by the way, but anyway, go on. They have to change the branding, otherwise UEFA has reaffirmed its commitments to staging this summer's European Championships in 12 cities across the continent. The tournament was postponed last summer due to the pandemic, and the deadline for plans to accommodate supporters inside stadiums has been pushed back until early April. It was early March. Dublin's Aviva Stadium is scheduled to host 4 matches during the tournament, 3 group games and 1 second round match. You're like, this really should go ahead. It's just a case of whether there are fans or not. Euro 2020, Nathan? Euro 2021? It's a lot of hats to have to remake and school bags to have to remake.
Well, this is it exactly. The signs are made and they ain't for changing now, and you have to admire that's recycling and sustainability and all that. Maybe it's the right decision. I know a lot of people in Ireland had a decision to make earlier this week about the games where UEFA were offering a refund for the matches in Dublin. You could take it now, and if you didn't take it, there was a possibility that even if the game was moved, that you may not get a refund. Now, within reason, I think. So if they were to move it to London, for example, that you may not get a refund. I think when it comes to it, if this all ends up taking place in England or in Germany, they'll have to refund everybody else from every other country. But when you listen to what the government have been saying over the last 24 hours, it's hard to see how any Polish or Slovakian or Swedish supporters are going to be coming to Dublin to watch a match. No, it's been a rough couple of days, I think, on the COVID front. I think we're starting to grapple with the new reality for 2021. So Ulster have made an exciting acquisition. Yeah, grand piece of business this, especially considering Marcel Coetzee is heading out the door in the summer. Former European Player of the Year, Leone Nakarawa, has signed a 1-year contract with Ulster. The Fijian forward will join from Glasgow Warriors come the summer. Meanwhile, Rob Herring and Ian Madigan have both signed new 2-year deals with the province. They became the 7th and 8th players to do so over the course of the last couple of days. Last 2 quick stories, West Ham and Padraig Harrington. Yeah, West Ham completing the permanent signing of Saeed Benrahma from Brentford for a fee of around 20 million quid. He has been on loan from the Championship side for the last couple of months, while European captain Padraig Harrington hopeful of being part of a party atmosphere at this year's Ryder Cup. The postponed tournament is due to be played at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin from September 24th. And speaking ahead of this week's Dubai Desert Classic, Harrington hopes the world will be approaching normality come Ryder Cup time.
There's no doubt there's going to be a Ryder Cup this year. I can't say that either, but within all reason, the Ryder Cup will be there and played, and I suspect because of being later in the year, being after the summer, that it could be close to normal, in some sense, but it's I won't say it's just outside my pay grade. I don't get to make a decision on that, or it doesn't. I've got to turn up and play with whatever conditions, as every golfer. We've got to turn up and play with whatever we're presented with, and that's very much the case with the Ryder Cup. But I think from the discussions I'm having, from the work I'm doing with it is full steam ahead, as if everything is going to be within reason. Everything is going to be able to go ahead as normal within whatever the new normal is. I think is the way we'll look at it, and I know if it does go ahead with full spectators and things like that, it will be a seriously big party. I think the relief for people to get out there and go to a sporting event of that magnitude will be palpable, and I'm sure the players will appreciate it. So maybe I'm being hopeful, but that's exactly what I want to see.
Well, I hope you're right, Padraig. I'm getting a real sense of deja vu here, Nathan. So it's like back to about March, April time, when the Olympics are sounding hopeful, the Euros are sounding hopeful, and Harrington's using phrases like full steam ahead. And I know how that all ended.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking the exact same thing listening to Padraig Harrington. It's like, we have been here before. The difference now, I think, is that sports are going to go full steam ahead with their events, by and large. Yeah. Supporters are no supporters. The PGA Tour are hoping to get fans back in the next month or so. And while it was maybe the right thing to do to delay the Ryder Cup by a year, they can't delay it another year. And it is a huge TV event. I understand the revenue supporters bring, but it's going to go ahead one way or the other, you would expect.
Yeah, okay. Listen, thanks.
Before we go, Joe.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we have had another goal at Villa Park. Aston Villa taking on Burnley. Peter Smith has the latest goal.
Burnley 1, Aston Villa 2. Jack Grealish has just been sensational throughout this game. He scored Villa's second goal. He turned in the box, played the ball out to the right. Douglas Luiz delivered across at pace with the ball diverted into the net with the right foot of Grealish. Absolutely outstanding. It's Burnley 1, Aston Villa 2.
Okay, 2-1 Villa. So, Nathan, thank you. Golf Weekly tomorrow, where Nathan Murphy will put the boot into Rory McIlroy and I will defend his honour. That's coming your way tomorrow lunchtime.
No chance.
And Richie McCormack, thanks as ever. Cheers. We've got Ronan O'Gara for you next.